I'm guilty of it as well, of talking about governments, federal, state, and local, as if they were some sort of foreign entity, some sort of alien. But we should always remember that governments, well, they're not really anything special. All they are is organizations, and they're made up of people. And we'll ponder that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution, where we teach the rising generation to be free. I'm glad you could join me. As always, head over to that website, constitutionstudy.com. Find out what's going on. We're getting close to the end of the month, so there's a limited amount of time for you to get my book at the discount, the pre-launch discount. That's right, you can get the paperback copy of the book for just $19.95, and there are extra specials that you can add on if you want to. Head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com/book, for all the information. Share it with friends. Share this content with friends. Take this opportunity to learn more about your Constitution and about your country than you ever thought you could. We can do that over at the website, constitutionstudy.com. So let me ask you, why is it important to understand not only what a government is, but who makes it up? Well, because our failure to remember that we hire public servants to work for us has led to us deifying our government and, by extension, those who work for them. I've been harping on this a lot lately, but it's worth repeating. We, the people, created governments. From the Declaration of Independence, quote, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. When we create governments, we do so via a constitution or some other charter. And it not only defines the structure of the government, but its boundaries as well. Now, part of defining the structure of government is determining how each will be staffed. I don't mean each and every office and position, but we start with how we staff the primary positions of the three branches of government. The United States Constitution starts with creating and defining the legislative branch. Similarly, the constitutions of each of our states create and define a legislative branch as well. Now, as often as we point and complain about those in Washington, D.C. and our state capitals, we need to remember two things. Those legislators are people. They were chosen by the people they represent. Now, complain as much as you want that you didn't vote for them, well, you also did not convince enough of your neighbors that they were a bad choice. And each and every one of those people we chose to be our representatives, our agents who act in our names, have sworn or affirmed to uphold the Constitution that created the office they are assuming. And next, the Constitution creates and defines an executive. While the state constitutions also create and define an executive, unlike the president who is chosen by the states, the governors are chosen by the people of their states. These people are just that, people. They have the same failures and foibles as we do. They should be trusted no more and no less than our neighbors. If you wouldn't hand over $1 million to your neighbor without keeping an eye on how they spent it, well, neither should you do so with your politicians. If you wouldn't allow your neighbor to set different rules for themselves than the ones you have to obey, well, you shouldn't allow your representatives to do so either. And if you wouldn't give your neighbor a gun and ask them to protect you, well, then you shouldn't give one to your agents in the State House or Washington, D.C. either. But what about the third branch of government? See, not only do we need to remember our constitutions establish and define a judicial branch, but we need to remember that those courts are part of the government, not separate from it. Now, would you trust a referee that was employed by one of the teams on the field? No. Well, then why would you trust a judge who is employed by the government, especially if the government that the judge works for is the same one you're trying to sue? Now, while those judges are the farthest away from we the people, well, they are held accountable to those we hire to represent us. Now, why is remembering all of this so important? See, by forgetting that government is merely an organization of people with a defined structure and limitations, we tend to look at it as if it's some superhuman entity that can solve all of our problems. I'm amazed by the number of times people would wait for a person with a government paycheck to deal with a problem. How often have we seen after a natural disaster people waiting around for FEMA or for their state emergency board to come and do something? There always seems to be stories, though, of people who just get together and take care of things themselves, as if that's the exception. Shouldn't that be the rule? How often have you heard someone say we should wait for the government employee to check that our buildings are safe, or determine if it's safe to eat, or where it'd be safe to work, or even what type of products we should be allowed to purchase? Is a doctor really better because he got his approval from a government employee rather than a private one? Well, let me ask you, are people better drivers because a government employee said they were competent? You see, this forgetfulness leads people to think that the shortcomings of all people, they cease to exist because someone gets a government paycheck. They act like the simple act of being hired by the government makes you perfect. People rail about monopolies while asking the government to monopolize more and more aspects of our lives. People giving the benefit of a doubt to the tax collector, the health inspector, or the law enforcement officer that they would never give to their neighbor. And if government is just an organization, then it can be overseen and held accountable, just like the Elks Club, Walmart, or whatever your favorite community organization is. Anything else turns a government from a creation of the people with defined limits and goals into a deity to be worshipped. So when we start talking about having the government do things, remember, we're asking people to do things that happen to work for an entity called the government. Now, we the people have given that government defined goals, defined rules, and defined limits to work within. And it's up to us to keep them in its place, to keep those who work for the government in their place. People in government shouldn't get a free pass because they get a government paycheck. If a law enforcement officer or a Department of Child Services officer or any government official breaks the law, they should be held accountable. If they violate your rights, they should personally be held accountable. They should not have this selective immunity that says, okay, the government will pay for my mistakes. You don't get to do that anywhere else, do you? But by treating people with a government paycheck as something special, we are asking them to become our rulers. If simply getting a government paycheck means you get to set the rules, we have an aristocracy. It may not be an inherited aristocracy. It may be an elected aristocracy. It may be an employment aristocracy. But we've created a class of people that are better than everybody else. At least that's the way we treat them. And I think it's about time the American people stop treating those in government as if they're special. They're people. They're individuals. They have the same great possibilities as well as the same shortcomings as everybody else. A government paycheck doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't make you the devil, and it doesn't make you an angel. But we need to remember that whatever we ask government to do, we're asking people to do. And the people we're asking to do it are not going to be the same people tomorrow that they are today. If you want to give the government a power because you like the person in that office today, remember, somebody you hate will likely be in that office tomorrow. So let's think about this before we continue to elevate the government as to some deity that can be worshipped, that we have to listen to, that can do no wrong. Whatever it says goes. Remember, that's nothing but a group of people. Let's pull away the curtain. They want to say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. No, let's look behind the curtain. Let's see what those people are. Let's see they're just men and women with feet of clay. Let's not vilify them for something they haven't done. Let's not deify them for the fact that they got a job for the government. Let's treat them like people. Let's treat the government like our creation. Let's hold it accountable. And let's do what is right, not just for us, but for the next generation, for our children, for our children's children. Let's not slide down into the abyss of tyranny and despotism that we've seen so many other countries slide down in our history. Let's learn from that. Let's be the shining light on the hill that we once were. Let us be that country of laws, not of men. head over to the website constitutionstudy.com. Check out my messages, share them, ask me questions, make comments, let me know what's going on. Give me an idea for another episode. Because this idea that a government is just an organization we create to do a job for us because we decided it was inefficient for us to do it ourselves has been lost. Or in the 240 plus years of this country, that idea is lost, and it's time we get that back. And the only way we do it is by educating ourselves, because the government's not going to do it. Maybe if we educate ourselves, we see a little more of the truth behind the curtain. Maybe we can once again get control of the governments we created and be the land of the free and the home of the brave. And hopefully I'll see you here next time on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from